All right, well, let's make a start, folks. Thank you everyone for their attendance, members, and thank you, Mid-Murray Council staff for being here today and supporting us in our journey here. We'll just do an acknowledgement of the country to kick off. Mid-Murray Council would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land, the Ngadjuri, Nawong, Naruku, Ngātkat, Ngarrindjeri, and Paramount peoples of the Mid-Murray lands and waters. It's upon the ancestral lands and waters that the Mid-Murray Council meets and operates. And Council pays respects to elders past, present and emerging, and their spiritual beliefs that are continuing importance for those First Nation peoples of today. Council further acknowledges the contributions and important role that First Nations people continue to play within the community. We extend that respect to any peoples in attendance here today. Thank you. Now, now we have apologies from
Chris Tugwell.
Chris Tugwell.
Leela has just joined us.
Welcome, Leela.
She's not got a camera on.
Okay. All right, so just an apology from Chris, who I did encourage. He sounded like a Joe Cocker support band today. He had a pretty raspy voice when I rang him a couple of hours ago. Well, he's not doing too well. All right, we have confirmation of the minutes from last August. They have been circulated, and thanks again to Mel for doing that. Could I have a mover and a seconder that those minutes are a good reflection of the meeting held in August last year? Thank you, Don. Yep, thanks, Greg. All right, is everyone's in agreement to this? No dissent? Yep. All right, we'll consider those to be moved. Declarations of interest. Any declarations to declare? Interest to declare? Okay, all right. Well, our first sort of order of business is the Torrens University and our student, Caitlin Conrady. Caitlin, I think you're with us, and welcome to the meeting. Here we go. Caitlin, can you hear us okay?
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, well, thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to your presentation. Okay, we might as well deputations. We happen to do that now?
I think so, yes. Well, we've got Caitlin on the line, and I can probably do a bit of the intro as well.
All right, I'll hand over to you, Greg. Thank you.
Caitlin, do you have I've got the presentation here as well. Do you want to put that up on screen? Maybe share screen?
I can definitely do that.
Just while you're doing that, really pleased today. Really pleased to be able to present visual identity with Caitlin today. As you know, we've built a brand strategy, which this group's saying, and visual identity is a really key piece about bringing that to life. And I think also it's probably worth remembering this is a long-term exercise for us in terms of building the Dark Sky brand. So having that identity piece is really key. And I just want to say a huge thanks to Caitlin in advance. I think it's really great that she's actually in Brisbane at the moment, about to be besieged, right? But it's been an absolute pleasure to work with Caitlin. And I'd say from my point of view, kind of inspiring to see the full process, and having worked in this space for 35 years, it's outstanding work. We hope you like it. So I really thought it was important for her to present the thought process and to go through, I suppose, the visual. So we'll go through that, and then there's the application and some of the ideas around how that might work. So I'll kind of hand across to Caitlin, and we'll kind of tag team a little bit.
Thanks, Greg. To kick off, I'm sure a lot of you really value research. So before we approach this, I spend a lot of time researching just the background of the space, what people who were traveling were looking for, what they knew about the current RMI DSR, all of that. So I did quite a bit of target market research. Some of the key things that I learned from that was that because more than half of the respondents were more likely to visit the Dark Sky reserve and the RMI DSR, after learning more about it, an educational approach, at least to start off with, is definitely a strong start. The importance of photography was highlighted. Tourism websites and blogs and YouTube, as well as Instagram, proved to be the platforms that most respondents research their travel plans on. Digital ads, travel influencers and TV programs also had the highest rate of inspiring respondents to travel. And most importantly, 90% of respondents had never heard of the RMI DSR, making this an opportune time to consider shortening or changing the name to have less syllables, to be easier to say and to be more memorable. So obviously there were a lot of different angles that we looked at, and this was the strongest one that people responded the best to. So what we've got here is the overarching brand of River Murray Dark Sky. So we've got this brand clarity through defined brand architecture. We've removed international to shorten both the name and the acronym, because RMI DSR as an acronym alone is quite a mouthful and it's hard for people to remember it. And the fact that it is an international dark sky reserve would still be referenced prominently across the website, socials, any content, etc. And then we've actually got these sub-brands that are unified as well. So what we've got here is the overarching brand, and then we would have the reserve as well as the observatory. So they both fit under River Murray Dark Sky, but when you want to get more specific about which aspect you are dealing with, you would use the corresponding logo. And obviously there are smaller versions as well for very, very small applications. Yes, so
It's okay, and I think that's really important around the architecture enables us to grow. So if there's an observatory, we have a clear identity on that, but we also have an identity around the reserve. So it does give us some room to be able to sort of encompass where we want to be down the track.
exactly. And as you'll see later on, the observatories, even though the color scheme is within this space, it's still unique and it's still in a unique space. And the wonderful thing is, if you wanted to grow even further and you wanted to add a cultural center or whatever it was, it would be easy to translate that and create separate identities for each additional application, which is great. So what you may not have noticed at first is that this little mark actually has a few layers of depth. So we've got the hidden meaning. So we've got R and M in here for River Murray. But more importantly, what you may see is it's got that really fluid feel. So it's really inspired by its namesake, obviously, the winding River Murray. We've got peeling eucalyptus tree bark, animal tracks, all sorts of natural elements that are really brought into this mark, so that it's not just a thing. It has a lot of meaning, and it's something that if you wanted to proceed in this direction, it's something that you can include in your storytelling, include in your communications, and it just provides a lot more meaning to everyone who's involved, whether they're working with it or experiencing the space for the first time. So yeah. So this would be the primary logo. The primary color would be this beautiful olive color. It's very natural, organic, very Australian, but you can see how it's very, it's easy to translate to different color backgrounds and use it in different ways, even in black and white. It's still striking regardless of the color that you choose. And just some more variations for different applications. So we've got the extended logo here, especially in the beginning or at an entrance, for example, you can see how you could use this sort of logo to just really show just more about what River Murray Dark Sky is about. We've got tiny little icons, we've got social media icons, we've got horizontal and landscape, horizontal and portrait. So lots of different options to be, it's easy to use in various applications. what we've got here is our color palette. So this is actually quite interesting. So the overarching brand, the River Murray Dark Sky, the primary color is this olive color, and then you can see we've got our secondary colors and our accents. But to really differentiate the reserve from the observatory, we've got two different, oh, sorry, is someone saying something?
No, it's just the reception.
Oh, okay, great.
Background.
Yes, no, and it's a bit of wind blowing here as well, so I'm like, hopefully you'll speak up if you want to say something. So with the Dark Sky Observatory, obviously we've got a bit more of a astral focus, a bit more night sky. We've got the really dark colors shining through with the brighter accents. With the reserve, we've actually got a day mode and a night mode. Because this is no ordinary reserve where you go during the day and you just experience it and then you go home. It comes to life in a different way at night. And so we've actually got day mode and night mode, and you'll see later on how this can apply. For example, in the website where you start off in day mode, and as they're on it, everything gets darker and darker, and it switches to night mode, and the night mode really comes to life to highlight this as the element that we're actually most passionate about. So typography wise, we've got this really classic, clean look. It's approachable, trustworthy, professional. It's very legible, even when it's very, very small. And it's also cleared for commercial use, so it's very cost effective. And then here we've got the icons. So we've got various icons that can be used to highlight different elements of the RMDS. So we've got the education focus, tourism, astral, land care, funding. And most importantly, we've got our dark sky classification here. So we've created this little badge that would be all over the website, social media. It can be printed on, even if someone was to go to the gift shop, it could be on there, any kind of documents that you use. It can really be used to communicate with other scientists, for example, who really care about this element that maybe tourists may not be as across. So what we've got here is the 21.9 really prominently with excellent dark sky sight and sky quality meter here at the bottom, just to make it really clear how special this site is.
And the other opportunity with that is to use it as an endorser. So for an operator, if it's an accommodation provider that says they're dark sky, if we were to let them use that, they would have to follow a series of practices in terms of lighting and everything else. So that they actually could use it. So some of those things actually become, again, part of our architecture, really important around making sure that people are just randomly applying things, saying they're dark sky operator when they're actually might have the worst lighting practices. So it's really important, again, how the scale, the scope this gives us in terms of down the track. And it's the same with the other icons. There are others that could be added. It's not defined list, it's an indication of what could be done around some of them, I suppose, those endorsers.
Yeah, definitely. So this is how you can kind of see an example of what the website could look like. I spent a lot of time researching, obviously, the current website, looking at other sites that do it really well. Some really great, strong examples were discovertasmania.com. I would highly recommend checking them out, as well as Common Ground, because what they really emphasize is the experience. So it's not just oh, it's a beautiful dark sky without meaning. It's you experiencing that dark sky, and that's what can draw people to come and see it, especially people potentially with less insight into astro, maybe who aren't there for the astrotourism side, but are just interested in learning a little bit more. So there's a lot of emphasis on using not just photos and videos of the stars, but actually people seeing the stars with a bit of a catchphrase of see what they see, like see yourself there. So you would start off with this hero video. The submark would be used creatively throughout. There would be top activities, for example, as you hover, it would become interactive, it would pop up, that sort of thing. And again, most importantly, the page would transition from day mode to night mode a few seconds after opening. And so the photos and videos would actually shift from daytime experiences to night as the colors are also getting darker. Yes. And then, so this is obviously currently in night mode, as you can see here. You would also include a map. At the moment, you've got such an incredible space. It would be amazing for it to be really interactive and for people to see where they can stay, what they can do where, easy transport, potentially places that are great for camping or places that are great for seeing the stars in this particular way. Yeah, so a lot of opportunity there. Definitely bringing in the land care element and the cultural connection would be important, and just the storytelling element of that and creating that cultural connection. And also very important, it would be amazing to highlight a lot of the research that's coming out of the Dark Sky Observatory. We could have a lot of papers here. This would really appeal to scientists and people who are coming, whether in a professional capacity or just out of an interest in the stars. Yeah, so a lot of great ways to, just on the homepage alone, really draw people in and inspire them. So here you can kind of see an example of what it could look like. So the day mode with a lighter color would be the daytime experiences. There are some amazing places that people can see during the day, and then it slowly shifts and now you're really focusing on the stars. Here's an example of what it could look like for Instagram. Again, there's a lot of emphasis on people experiencing the stars, very much an emphasis on their expressions as they see the stars to help people realize just how special it is. One of the things that I learned from my research was of the respondents, the majority of people lived at least an hour to 2 hours away from a really clear star visibility. And I think we forget what true dark can really be like and just how incredible, like it's hard to picture it when you haven't seen it yourself. And it's not just these incredible cameras that are set up that are catching, but that your actual naked eye can see that. Is something that we really want to get across and get people excited that this is truly something special. So it would be a mix of photography and experiences. So for example, here you can also see some of the nocturnal animals that you can see, cultural elements, you know, camping, those sorts of experiences, as well as educational. So you can really highlight, you know, like different dark sky phenomena that you can see this month, or 10 dark sky tips from top astrophotographers, that sort of thing. Like there's a lot of opportunity to grow and get people excited, not just for the people who are already excited about the stars, but actually to get a whole lot of new people genuinely interested and excited to learn more. It would also be great to include a lot of sensory reels, so people really experiencing the DSR and the DSO. So, you know, touching the telescope, holding hands under the stars, the crackling of the campfire, all of those experiences that just make something feel special. And again, you can just kind of visualize it. And also another thing to note, while it would be important, obviously, to get a lot of really quality imagery to really kick off this new look, long term, it would be more sustainable because people love to tag and have their photos be shared, especially people who are quite passionate about astrophotography. So you'll get a lot of organic content coming through as well, that you can continue to have fresh content. Here is an example of what you could do for a video ad sequence. So this is, again, see what they see. So you start off with the girl in her swag, you know, looking up at the stars. It just really zooms in until you can see the stars in her eye. So you're seeing what she's seeing. It then shifts from the naked eye view to the telescope view. Then you get the telescope frame. You then get the girl with the telescope, zoom out, and you get to see the observatory. So this is just an example to help people visualize. You've got that naked eye view and you've got the telescope. Like whether you're just experiencing the reserve or you're experiencing the observatory, there would be so much to see and experience, and it's yeah, very cool. Just some examples of merchandise and signage, some wayfinding signage, And I do have more insights from the survey for those who are interested. But what might be of most interest to you is, 49% said they needed to travel more than 1 hour to see the stars clearly. 42% did not know that light pollution affects star visibility, human sleep patterns, and ecosystems. And 90% had never heard of the RMI DSR before. I looked at how the different ways they would like to experience the RMI DSR / DSO, what they learned, and if they were now more interested, what made them more interested. Some personas, different types of people based on the demographics that I surveyed, the different experiences and touch points that they'd experienced, the whole journey. So a lot of research has gone into it, but it led us all to this.
So I think just in summary, I mean, as you can see, the level of thinking behind it. And that's a credit to Caitlin and the work that's been done. But I think from a branding point of view, what we want is clear, what we call brand coding. So you have color, you have logo, it's easy to understand. So over time, when you see it, you build that connection. And then the other really important part is we're starting to really build and you can see what that emotional connection will be no matter where you are. And that's kind of, I suppose, on the back of, again, value proposition around being close to Adelaide, close to the stars. So yeah, there's a lot of scope for us to, I suppose, build over time. And certainly, I think it's going to hold us in pretty good stead. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a few. Caitlin, that's some really good work there. Thank you. Did you, this might be just a coincidence, but did you look at the Mighty Murray Way, which is an SA tourism road trip? Because that blob, or whatever you call it, it sort of has a similar look and feel.
No, I haven't actually seen that. I was looking at a lot of the River Murray tourism sites, and a lot of them have got the river element, which is why I was excited to include it. But
Well, it might be a pro or a con, I'm not sure.
yeah, this one actually just happened organically when I was fiddling around with creating the shape of R&M. But
Okay.
it makes sense that that wave sort of element flows into a lot of the tourism.
Okay. Don, it's pity Chris is not here as well, and I don't know the answer to this, but is there any criteria in respect to the international accreditation that you have to use the word international? Might be just worth checking that out. I don't know the answer.
No, it's not.
Okay, well, that's good.
We put it in there because we thought it would help give it extra status, it's not a South Australian dark sky reserve, it's
Okay, well, that leads me to my next
international
point, and
accreditation.
this is not something that Caitlin would be aware of, so it's no criticism, but I think it's something for this committee to look at. I personally, I've never liked the fact that it's been called River Murray, because South Australian is the only one that calls it River Murray. So longer term, if it's relevant that if we're marketing to international and to interstate, if we change it to the Murray River International Dark Sky Reserve, then the logo, and there are a lot of elements of a brand, and I've written myself a note, I really like the fact that you're trying to simplify, because it is too much of a mouthful, there's no doubt about that. Not that I think it's easy to see the RM, to be quite frank. Until you pointed that out, I didn't see, but maybe just because I'm
It's
blind.
very, very subtle.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if subtle's what we need, but if, for example, it did change to Murray River, would that still be a good? Well, I'm just asking the question. These are things that need to be considered. And when I first looked at that, it reminded me of the National Portrait Gallery. I don't know if you've ever been there in Canberra, and they've got this big orange blob. I reckon everything else is really good, and the colours and the rationale and the whole thing. So this is just one thing I'm concerned about. When I first looked at that, I don't know, I found it hard to come to grips with it. It even sort of has half a sexual connotation. I'm just saying, I would welcome any other feedback from the group here because everything else is really good, but that core logo worries me a bit.
I immediately looked at the logo and thought I recognised that from somewhere. I think the simplicity of a logo is good. But it's probably very closely aligned to Loxton Waikerie Council logo. Have a look at that, which is an L and a W. It does get a little bit.
I think you can probably go through a multitude of, different logos and draw parallels. It's probably possible to get a clear run at like not having some sort of similarities. But I think what we've got is the full package. It's actually more I put around it, the logo, the colours, that kind of gives it the, I suppose to set the brand coding that it's unique.
Very good package is great. And Kate, you've done a wonderful job. I'm just saying if it's meant to be an R and an M, let's make it look a little bit more like an R and an M rather than an L and a W. That's my only.
Yeah, just needs a bit of tinkering, I think. You know, it's no criticism. I'm just saying
it's there.
massage.
It's brilliant. I love it. I love the colours. I love the simplicity. I just, obviously, from a Mid-Murray Council perspective, it's within, and Murray River Lakes and Coorong perspective, it's within our region, not Destination Riverland. And if we are more closely aligned in look to Loxton Waikerie than Mid-Murray, it could, well, no, it's probably only going to be deceiving for those that know the difference, to be perfectly honest. But for me, a bit of tweaking, R and an M being a little bit more than an L and a W.
I agree that that's what I was getting at.
That's all.
The other thing, can I make a comment?
Can well, when there's a moment, I'll have a comment.
All right,
Please.
can I just finish and then go artist? I've done this lots of times, and I always said to the group of people, I had 20 people in a room once in Canberra, and no one agreed, not one. And I said, in a year's time, we won't be arguing about this. If we use this, brand's way more than the logo, but if we use this consistently, in a year's time, honestly, probably no one's going to worry about it. So I just want to put that out there. So I'm just trying to get some discussion. But at the end of the day, if you used it and used it properly, it will work.
Ben, you had a comment?
Yeah, so to couple of things, I think the subtle is the key to it. So I don't actually want to see, a distinction, like a distinctive R and M. I think that's why I like the subtleness. That's what the river does. I also think we call it the River Murray. We don't call it the Murray River, Bill, in South Australia.
Who are we marketing to, Ben?
I take that point, but what does SATC use?
They haven't used much. That's the problem.
Well, do they not use River Murray?
Oh, I have to check, but when I was
Correct.
working with the SATC, we didn't.
I've actually taken SATC through it.
They call the Mighty Murray Way, Ben, on the road trip.
I've taken them through. I've actually taken SATC through the word. They were pretty thrilled with what was put together, because obviously it's going to be an asset that we want them to drive as well. And I think that it's kind of to some extent a semantic argument. Someone that's never been here before, to them, the most important thing is they go, that's the big river you've got somewhere. I mean, most international visitors have got no idea where Adelaide is. So, it's kind of what they're researching is dark sky. So when they get there, then it's making it easy for them to understand where we are and how you get there and what it is. So I think we kind of can overthink actually what we're trying to do, because really it comes back to that simplicity and the stuff we put around it that makes it easy for them to understand it. Oh, that's an hour from where I'm going. How do I get there? Who do I go and book with? What am I going to go and do? And that's the challenge. So I think it's actually, there's probably no right or wrong answer. But I think again, we've come up with something that's ownable, it's subtle, and it's a 10 to 20 year vision around where we want to be with owning, I suppose, dark sky. And the reason we want to do that is because we have competitors within Australia and globally that are tapping into that astrotourism market. So the reason we need that identity again is because a bunch of words doesn't mean anything to anyone. So dragging them into the website, getting them to understand it is kind of, I suppose, what it's all about. And then when they're here, signage, the branding material reinforces, I suppose, that arrive in a special place. So I think it's to some extent, you know, what we put around it, how we do it and how we treat it, and even with international, how we do that in copy. And when Caitlin made that point, how you write that up, how you bring international into those other aspects. It's not you drop it, you still use it, but just simplifying it around something that kind of is meaningful. And you know, don't forget, people are bombarded with thousands of messages a day. So we just want to make it easy for them to understand, oh, that's the dark sky pipe, I get that. And I think that's kind of why this work I think is so inspiring, is that because it's subtle, it's clever, it gives us a set up from an architecture point of places we can go.
Okay, but I've got no issue with the subtlety and all that. But I'm trying to make the point here is now is the time to decide. If you're considering who you're marketing to, why do they call it the Zambezi? Why everywhere else in the world it's such and such river?
Yeah, I think that's outside of, to be honest, that's like.
Well, it'll affect, but if the decision is made, Greg, to actually call it Murray River International Dark Sky Reserve, which I think it should be, that will affect this. So that's why I'm raising it.
Yeah, I think
And you can't say it's separate.
I'm taking the point. I'm just trying to give you a bit of a, I suppose, where we sit. I certainly understand the point that we're coming. But I think it's either way. I think in terms of we talk about who we're marketing to, I don't think it's an issue for them. So I think you can be pretty safe whichever way that rolls.
Oh, thank you, Greg. Now, this Caitlin, I take it's done her presentation, it's finished?
Yep.
Yep.
It's still there, Caitlin?
Yes,
Thank you very much, Caitlin.
Thanks for your time, Caitlin.
Presentation.
no worries. Just a last point, if it helps. In the research process, it's just not included here, but I did look at a lot of different scientific logos as well as the higher end experiential, like from places around the Barossa and those sorts of things, because we are looking to appeal to people who are going to either. So that consideration was taken into it as well, so that it does have that high end feel, but still ideally practical and straightforward and appeal to scientists as well. But I'll leave you there and all the best with your discussion.
Well,
Thanks,
before you go, Caitlin, sorry, are there any other questions for folk who are online? Any other questions or comments before Caitlin leaves us? All right, beautiful. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Victoria.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you.
All right, let's move on, folks. Got a bit to get through yet. Now we have item. What is it? Item 7.1. Now, Dave is not with us. Ben, do you want to speak to this?
No,
Are there any questions or comments about the lead light replacement project from any member? Tom?
Can I just ask, it's a pity David's not here, but if someone else knows the answer, in the first few discussions we had about this issue, I mean, it's only pedantic in some way, but it could be important. Talk about, like, we were talking about a colour temperature of 4,000 or a colour temperature of 3,000. And in this one, I had raised that in previous discussions because it was being used in the context of luminance intensity. So you were going from 4,000 down to 3,000 was supposed to be a good thing because it would be reduced intensity. Whereas what I was pointing out that lumens the measure of intensity, not the colour temperature. And it is actually less glary if it's a lower colour temperature, but that isn't related to actually the intensity. Now I notice it's gone, the same numbers are there, but they're lumens, and I'm just wondering, I I was going to ask David if he chased that up and found that it was wrong before and it actually should have been lumens. But I think it's an important thing because it means, you know, something like 25% reduction in light intensity if it's lumens, and that's good. But if it's a difference in colour temperature, it's nothing. That's the difference.
My understanding it is lumens.
Right, okay, well, can we make sure that's confirmed?
That's
given that Dave's
in
not
our,
here.
in our conversations with the SA Power Network, it's all about lumens.
But when they were on the phone hookup, they didn't correct it then when I raised it. So I just think we just need to know that we are on the right track here. That's all, I think.
I think that's the colour.
Um,
All right, that's one. Ben, I've got a question for you, if I may. At the bottom of page 5, I think we are. It's got other options requested as a quote for the provision of smart cell technology within the confines of the dark sky area. Can you let us know where's it up to in terms of conversations with SAPN? Has that been raised with them?
sorry.
It's your turn.
I'd have to take that on notice, Andrew. I don't have an answer to that.
All right, if you could, please. The other matter that Chris Tugwell asked me to raise today, and someone may wish to move this way, would be to invite SAPN to become a member or a partner of the Dark Sky Reserve, so that we can work more closely with them. I think they support all manner of NGOs and not-for-profits and other things. Ben, again, you're in the hot seat here, mate. Has there been any discussion or even sort of informal discussions about that possibility of SAPN partnering with Mid-Murray or with us, with Dark Sky?
Not that I'm aware, Andrew. So again, I'll have to have that conversation, and we just really need to be clear on what partnering looks like. You know, they partner with NGOs from a sponsorship perspective, or you know, partner in what we're trying to achieve from a light perspective. So we'll have to ask that question.
All right. And Tom?
Yeah, the report we've got here is not very extensive, and out of the previous informal discussion, it appeared to me that the mayor and the CEO were both in favour of doing the right thing by not creating a problem for the registration, the accreditation we've got for the Dark Sky Reserve, and there was seemed to be an intention to have an inventory done or an assessment done of the lights that we've got here. I mean, here in Canberra, for example, I've heard it said by others that live here that there's more lights in the street than there are people in the town, and I made the point about the street I'm on has far more lights. It's lit up like a Christmas tree, the whole thing. And I would have thought, if we were liking to see as a byproduct of this, the cost savings both in energy and in capital investment, the first thing that should have been done a long time ago was to work out, in fact, whether we could practically reduce the number of lights around. I believe we can. If you go to the Bow Hill thing, well, I know they've got decorative lights there with proper conical luminaires that push the light down. It's a lot darker than it is in the street I'm in, for example, or in Canberra. And I don't think there's any safety or other reasons why we shouldn't be cutting back on the lights. It would have a beneficial effect to the Dark Sky Reserve. It will have a beneficial effect for ongoing expenses for energy, and as well as the capital investment in the first place. And that way then we probably could, if we could halve the number of lights, for example, or some other reasonable fraction of reduction, you might have a budget saving there that would enable those lights to have the smart cell technology on there so that they can be adjusted remotely when needed. So it's just a comment that I think we really ought to push that, and it doesn't appear in this report, that same positivity that came out of the previous meeting.
Dave, an apology. I mean, that is definitely one of the conversations that we're having with SA Power Network in terms of the 4 towns that we discussed about within the reserve, as to whether then there's an opportunity to reduce the number of lights and or using the smart technology within those 4 towns. So they're all elements that are going to be explored with the rollout.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions or comments to this matter from any other member?
I think at the end of the day, it's a very positive step forward that council and Saffron are looking at. There are obviously going to be improvements as we roll out, so this is a great first start. And I think the report, yes, it is brief, but it does take on all of those points to some degree on.
Yeah. I guess I'm a little sensitive to it because it just seems that this came out of the blue. We weren't the committee here. We've got a committee here on the dark sky thing, and they weren't involved in it when it first came up, which I think we should have been. And in fact, I only read about it in the local newsletter when it was already sort of done and dusted to some extent. And I'm a bit surprised about that. And I guess I'm a bit sensitive about it. So if we do follow the positivity that came out of the previous meeting, then I won't moan about it again. But the problem is we'll be locked into whatever we do for many years to come. And if it ends up with the sort of problems that happened down at Clayton Bay, where they did the same lights and the community were just up in arms about the brightness of the whole thing, and SA Power Networks had to switch a lot of them off and put the smart technology in and turn them down. We shouldn't have to go through that same process here, surely.
No. I guess my question would be to Ben, if I may. It's got here about the big issue is raised about the diffuser or the lens underneath these Silvana lights being a bulbous. They're described as a bulbous shape in the second last paragraph on page 5. I guess my concern would be, now these are the least desirable shape, as in they will refract light in all manner of different directions, which is not desirable. So again, question to perhaps Gary or Jared or Ben, if that's the only lampshade fitting available, are we still going to go ahead with that? Is I guess is a concern, given the feedback we got at our informal gatherings that this is our least desired outcome. It may add to our overall light pollution issue or light wash, I think as they refer it to. Is there anyone can offer any commentary there?
So again, our recommendations with SAPN will be to avoid using those. The notion at the informal gathering was the idea of having that 360 barrier. The question came around whether that was actually part of the actual Perspex component or separate, or could it be separate? So that's something that we need to clarify with SAPN, because it might be that if there is part of a Perspex frame, then we may need to have no Perspex at all. Yes. That means there'll be no barrier.
Yes.
So that's something that we're still exploring with this.
Yeah, but that's what's been found out, that the no barrier one doesn't spread the light as far as the one with the barrier in it, because they got the bulbous Perspex, which shoots it back up in the air.
So we are still endeavouring to have that resolved. And just coming back to your other point around smart technology, Jared and I, we're going to engage a consultant to do some work for us around our light policy and our light management plan that obviously has been endorsed by council. That policy is due for review. So we're going to have that policy and management plan review with a lens of using smart technology. So that way we can sort of tweak what we've currently got in our light management plan to encourage smart technology as a solution to managing light.
And the reassessment of the survey of what lighting's needed ought to be part of that too, I think. We're informed of that process, surely.
Yep.
Well, that would be good.
All right, so just, well, yeah, well, thank you, Don, for raising those concerns. More information to come. So, and again, thanks to Mid-Murray folk for chasing the topic that's again. It is important. All right, if there's no further discussion on this matter, we'll keep moving on. Which brings us to 8.1.
Excuse me, just going to move on a second to receive the report.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, can I, a move in a second, please, that report. Tom, thank you. Oh, okay, I think I'll get Councillor Schultz in just by a hair there. You've got the house, so congratulations. All right, and so there's no dissension there. We'll consider that move. Thank you very much, folks. All right.
Landry, just on, I'm a bit confused with what's happening in this meeting. By not voting on the grant presentation, does that mean that we're automatically accepting it?
It's the agenda item. It's the agenda on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
No, that is a very good pickup because it is an agenda item. I was going to capture it in motion for that notice later on, but no, we need to finish that off quite so and certainly receive the presentation and then other points around that. So thank you, Bill. All right, so our dark sky strategy and action plan. Can I kick over to Jared, please, on this one?
Sure. Questions, I assume, start there. So you can obviously see the progress that's been made since the last meeting. And governance, structure, compliance. As Gary said, we're about to undertake a review of the policy, the management plans. Annual report's been lodged. We've got the branding strategy, which have just all been presented.
Yeah. I've got some questions. So, quick, perhaps deal them if we may, just one at a time. So, the first one is our governance structure. I prefer governance structure now. So, I'm actually here, staff have met, discussed this, and so the preferred option at this stage is a skills-based board.
So we've put 3 there, and at this point, the preferred option appears to be a skills-based board.
And that skills-based board would have presumably, or not necessarily, but would have Mid-Murray council or councillor involvement.
I would
Potentially.
assume, yeah,
Potentially.
potentially. So we've come up with a matrix of the functions of that board. Our next step is to, so for the next meeting, I'll prepare a report for the endorsement of the structure of the governance. And further to that, we will then start identifying particular individuals that we think that would suit that board, those functions on the board.
Be interesting to see what skills you define as needed to contribute to that.
So we did that at a workshop last year.
Yeah.
So that was used as the basis to the matrix. So
Yeah, I remember doing that, but I forgot what the
so
pretty cool. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to revise that.
So they'll come back in that report.
Yeah.
And I noticed there's sorry.
No, please.
Down there in that report, there's a bit about the Walker's Flat area for a possible observatory. And I don't know if you can tell us where exactly it is, but is it going to be in the river valley or up further out?
It would be on this side of the river, up
or
top.
Yeah.
That's right, isn't it?
Well, at the moment, we don't have a preferred.
We don't have
site,
the exact
No.
site, we're just
So
looking
it's
at.
just that, I mean, living on the river, I know that there's a high, if you're in the valley, there's a very high incidence of high humidity every night or nearly every night, and even fogs quite often, which don't extend up onto the top.
Yeah.
It's just the river, and especially in this warmer, when the water's warmer.
Yeah.
Now that would be a absolute bugger up for any observatory that's down there. It might be a nice place to be, but not for looking through a telescope through the fog.
We've just identified a potential
Okay,
location.
so
not
just keep in
actual
mind
site.
that it'll need to be out of the river valley.
Just based on that, because I guess I was a bit surprised with this Walker's Flat size. I'm not sure if we've had this conversation before, but where it's come from, but I'm assuming then the Otto land adjacent to Swan Ridge Conservation Park is no longer being pursued as a site at this stage.
Well, I mean, John is building his own
Yep.
infrastructure there at the moment. And then I suppose what it comes down to then for, if you're looking at a $20 to $30 million investment for tourism related infrastructure to come and line with the dark sky, is where's the optimal location? It's the optimal location that becomes, whereas a key point, you don't want to put it in fog, but also you want to maximise demand. So you've also got to think about workforce, where would they come from? So there's different sort of, I suppose, things that sort of feed into what the optimal location is. And ultimately, that needs to be, it needs to be validated, but also potentially tested so that we, if we're putting some numbers, started to sort of map out what the numbers look like, and therefore what from a consumer point of view is the best.
Well, I'd just flag that, you've got, at the moment, this committee, that Chris and I are on, his committee has got some of the most knowledgeable people in this area, in this state. And I think it's worth involving one or two of them. Not me, I'm only an amateur at it, but there's a couple of retired professional people who know this game pretty well. And one in particular has got the equipment to take very accurate, well calibrated images of the sky, which tell you exactly what light pollution levels are coming all around.
Yeah.
So I think that if you get a spot that's ideal for observing through a telescope, that I think then you might have several of those that then you can go for the one that might be best for attracting people to it. But if you go for a site very principally on its location from an access point of view, it might not be any good for observing. So I think we've got to have something that actually is functional.
Yeah, so again, that was again, we had that workshop where we identified some of the criteria for site selection. So once we refine that, that will help. And at a meeting, on Monday, where council's working on another project, which will hopefully give us a tool that will assist us with site selection for projects. So this, would be part of that process to ultimately work out. And at the end of the day, this is not about restricting anyone from doing anything. In terms of this being our project, ultimately, in terms of where an optimum location is, it doesn't stop other private investments from occurring either.
No. But if you've got a 3 in the short list of locations, all I'm saying, don't forget you've got a connection through this committee to people who can
realise that. So
who
the
can
decision
tell you that
decisions
which
should
one's
be done
next.
part because we're a long way away before we even decide.
Yeah, can I make a comment on this? And I know it's not a perfect world, but here I am at the Caribbean Camping Shade speaking to hundreds of people, trying to get interest and say, now give them the concept and say, hey, we need everyone's support to get an observatory and planetarium. And they go, where do you think that's going to be? And I'm thinking, well, I've been told there's some land at Swan Ridge. And at this meeting today, I find out that there's been a meeting looking at a completely different site. I'm just wondering whether, when's the last meeting we had here, Andrew? A long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that would have been handy to know.
It's still up in the air as to where it will be. If there are multiple sites, we're saying from a tourism perspective, Walker Flat may be more beneficial. From a scientific point of view, Swan Ridge is beneficial. So we're not restricting any site at this stage. So we are open to looking at all sites. And like I said, once we've got this tool, we'll be able to hopefully be able to start doing some analysis to work out what are the optimum sites for it. So, Otto's not out of the question, and John George is definitely not out of the question because he's progressing. But we are looking at, alternative sites as part of the study. So there's nothing concrete.
Would we be in a position by the May meeting to have a further report
No.
to this?
I don't think we'll be in a position to, know where the site might be. We will simply keep on progressing with the business plan along the logic that we've got. But ultimately, we will have this spatial tool that I'm hoping won't probably be ready till November.
I think to some extent, it's like any pitch. If you're asking for X, there's got to be X, which is around the economic benefit. So that's what we'll, in terms of overarching sort of government funding, they'll look to the multiplier. Well, what does that do for jobs? What does that do for X? So it's work in progress. And I think it's kind of important to keep an open mind around where that optimal location is. But I think the point Gary is really good one around, we need other private sector investment on other projects.
All that's all very sensible, except that in the context of it all, anywhere in this reserve is very, very convenient compared with other good quality observatories that people can go to. I mean, we're talking about competing in a field where people take their gear to the mountains of Peru. Now, we don't have to do that here. And if we make a mistake and go along quietly without involving people who understand these constraints, and we find out we put it somewhere where it won't work too well, then the whole thing's going to be a waste of time.
Yeah, that's good. It's a great point.
And I sympathise with what Bill said, because I felt the same when I read this. I said, I've had a feeling that there was more progress going on than maybe there has been, but the way it's written here, it seems like decisions are already being made and you haven't involved.
And I've got no issues with everyone's accountabilities, and I'm not having a go at that.
Right.
Maybe we need to meet more or have some sort of interim opportunity of communication, because this is building and this is very important. And I absolutely agree with what you said, Gary. You've got to look at all the different criteria and look at options. But I feel like a bit of a dummy now, because I'm telling everyone Swan Reach is the go, when that would be handy to know that my narrative would have changed. So, I'm just trying to get a balanced view in this sense.
Yeah. And look, and maybe it's appropriate now.
Can I make a comment, Andrew, through the chair?
Go Ben, yep.
Oh, look, I suppose my comment through you, Andrew, is like, yes, we've had conversations about Swan Reach, but it doesn't mean that Swan Reach is the optimal decision, Bill. So, in any messaging that we're putting out there is that it should be that we're exploring opportunities, and yes, Swan Reach is a consideration.
Yeah, I agree with that, but from the narrative previously and at these meetings, and as I said, I'm get back to the point, Ben, maybe there needs to be more communication. In my mind, I'm not saying Swan Reach was 100%, but that was the thing that was talked about. So logically, if people are asking me, that's what I'm going to say. If had been some more communication, my narrative would have been broader. Now I know my narrative will be broader.
Thank you, Bill. All right, let's carry on. Well, I've got a question for Gary. This elusive planning code amendment for our lighting policy. Now, you quoted a price tag of about $20,000 to pay a consultant to do this work.
About that.
That's
The minimum.
It's just really lunch money in my view these days. So, is council considering part of its budget bid coming up to allocate funding? Has there been a request put to elected members in the 25-26 budget for that money for this planning code amendment? It just seems everyone's fascinated by this, but no one's got any dosh, and everyone's sort of not coming to the party. And I think this is, personally, I'm sure we all agree, this is pretty important stuff to try and, I'm hearing anecdotally that post-flood, the lighting on the shacks is much worse, much brighter, more use of spotlights, those sort of things. So, that's from shack owners I've heard. This sort of stuff needs to happen sooner rather than later, potentially. But I know you've approached Minister Champion and those sort of things, but has there been any discussion in the House about fundings in the next financial year?
Well, we just started our budgeting process, so first, an opportunity will come up in the next workshop with the members.
All right. Would there be an interest in a resolution from this committee to request to council that this matter be considered for the 25-26 budget? If a matter be considered for funding?
So just to clarify where we are with the code amendment before we move anything. So, we did meet with the commission, and like I said, we did get a favourable response to the initiative. Their work plan is 2 years out, so they aren't in a position to take anything on board at the moment. I spoke to Mark Morgan, who's the Director for Planning and Building in the department, who's also an ex officio member of the commission. He did encourage us to pursue code amendment, and it might be that we need to continue to seek, partner support, partnerships, and the like. I did indicate that we have been trying to find partners. We've tried SATC, we've tried DEW, we've tried the Office of Chief Scientist. So he just strategically, we will be writing to the Minister for Planning to request that he initiate the code amendment. So we will attempt that as our first priority. With letters of support that we'll be seeking from government agencies and the like. So I've actually literally just picked off an email before this meeting to the first of those agencies. I'll be definitely going to SATC, which I know will definitely provide a letter of support. So we are going to go down that path. As far as having budgetary discussions around funding for a code amendment, that again, like I said, we can take on board on notice and after conversation with the members.
Thank you, Harry. Because I think you may mention that if today you engaged a consultant and got the ball rolling, it would still take us 12 months, 2 years.
It's 12 to 18 months for a code amendment, give or take. And the fact that we are looking at a statewide code amendment, that has implications for who can initiate code amendment. That's why we've been pursuing agencies and the commission. So writing to the minister now is probably our best strategy moving forward. It might be that by writing to him with letters of support, there is going to be an opportunity for the ministers to probably circumvent the work plan that the commission has.
Yeah.
Equally, the minister could turn around and initiate it with the department to do the code amendment. So there are mechanisms under the PDI Act to do that. If council was to initiate it, then it is going to be solely associated with the reserve of the Murray Council. We're seeing that there are broader implications for this Arkaroola, Carrigalinga, and other potential future localities. So us going it alone is not necessarily the best strategic option, but ultimately may have to be the option.
Okay.
I don't want to try and get this committee to put pressure on the council for extra expenses given the situation or anything, but I understand what you're saying. It sounds great, but I've been involved since the beginning with Chris's committee and getting the Dark Sky Reserve accredited in the first place, and we've been discussing this for all those years, and really the progress made is relatively small. I wouldn't mind if we could, if there's going to be a elected members workshop on that has an influence on priorities for going forward. I think the idea of having proper planning arrangements to support what the Dark Sky is trying to do is an important thing, and I wouldn't mind that we had at least some words conveyed to the members to say that this committee thinks that that's a high priority. I don't know if that's it. I have said it in the right way for local government activity, but I wouldn't mind a message being sent from this committee to the meeting of members that the code amendment action should be regarded as a high priority. Now, if they could do it by a whole lot of lobbying to members of parliament and the state government, then and it doesn't cost us anything, that's great. But we've got $100,000 grant, it seems, here for a business plan.
Yes, that's.
Which is all very good, but ultimately, if we don't do anything that facilitates some infrastructure that's going to attract people in, the whole thing's really not worth doing.
Would they miss $20,000 out of a $100K grant, but just something which we're planning on having?
Unfortunately, that funding is sitting.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, you know, we will continue to identify any grant funding that will allow us to do the code amendment. So Jared and I are always keeping an eye out on any available grants that we can apply for to assist us in doing the code amendment.
All right, back to Don's point, Don, do you want to move?
Well, I'd like to move that we do indicate that that's a priority, it should be a high priority for council. I don't want them to think that I've got my hand out for money for it or anything. If it can be done, I'd just like to get it done. And if it can be done for free, that'll be even better. But if it takes 20 grand or some other achievable amount, then, but as long as it's a high priority and not just left lying around. Now, that's not a very good
No,
one.
Paul Miller, she's trying to mash those words out of that.
That's
So,
good.
if you could distill that down to 20 words or less.
20 words or less.
When your hands on.
This committee conveys to the council our view that the code amendment is a high priority activity. All right.
Is that the best way? We got Ben, the CO, and Mayor Simone. Is that the best way to approach this, or is there another
Is there a
way?
better way? Yeah. don't
I
mind.
think, look, the committee can make that recommendation or make that comment. I would just say, if the committee's position is that further to that would be considered as part of a budget allocation for the 25-26 year.
Yep.
And look,
That's
I suppose I'll make a general comment on it, is that, you know, we want to progress this as a council perspective, but we have to consider all of the elements of the whole council area in budget allocation. So, yeah, I'm not saying the council won't consider that favourably, but if we had unlimited resources, we would do many more things that we would like to do as well. But I think it's appropriate that a motion be passed.
Thank you, Ben. And look, no, your comments were all made. I don't envy elected members and the decisions they have to make because, yes, you're trying to keep everyone happy on a very small bucket of money. So it's never an easy process.
Look, probably the other comment I'll make through you, Chair, is you know, we need to prioritise governance structure because I'm getting the sense from the committee that there's some frustration about how things are progressing. And this is reliant completely on council's investment in this and staff resources that we're doing these things. And independent governance, where a skill-based board and an independent association or company is set up to drive this forward, is clearly, in my opinion, the best course of action because you are limited by council's goodwill in investing in this. And, you know, we believe in it, but you know, we've got challenges all over the region that need to be considered.
Fair point. All right, Mel, you have to read back Tom's motion, please.
That the Dark Sky Committee conveys to council our view that the code amendment is a high priority activity and be considered as part of the 25-26 budget process.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you. All right. Can I have an indication, all those in favour, please? Just show of hands. Yep, all right. Lovely. Thank you very much. There's no dissent, so we'll consider that passed. Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Don.
So with the one Ben has just said, is that a motion or does someone else have to do it? Because That's a very important
Let's
one.
move back to the next meeting, is that your preferred governance structure?
In terms of the governance structure, yeah, I would suggest that you probably want to move a similar.
Well,
Wasn't there a recommendation, just going back up, that staff have met something about there's 3 different models? And that at this stage, staff will review, here we go, that there's direct council management, subsidiary board, which we are now, or an NGO-based board. A report will be prepared for the next committee meeting seeking endorsement of the structure.
So, yeah, so effectively we'll have a report to the next committee meeting with that preferred model and skill-based matrix. So I think
So we don't need to-
so I think Ben's point is that that's equally should be prioritised. So the fact that we are going to try to bring that, and if we need to bring and have a special meeting of the committee to fast track it, we can call a special meeting.
You happy with that, Bill?
yes,
Yeah, all right,
thank you.
No, that's good. All right, can we just go back down to Jared, perhaps? We were successful in securing $100,000 grant allocated to the Dark Sky Reserve. So what's the purpose of the grant? And
That is for the business case, preparation and development of the business case. Yeah.
all right, will there be more of that information at the next meeting potentially? Is that part of the journey here?
Yeah, so that's only just being released, so
I think it
we'll,
was just, yeah.
so yeah, there's a bit of work to start now with that.
And at this stage, we still haven't received the grant ring.
That's well. All right. So it's very, very early. Okay, thank you. Now, that's congratulations to those involved.
Yeah,
That's really good news. Any other comments about the grant at all at this stage? From anybody? Okay. Confirming, line done that one. The Star Party, Canberra School was great. Good.
Can I just add a point to that? I don't know whether it really means anything, especially since it's quite a while ago now, but Ken Grant, who's on Chris's committee, a more recent member, actually is a councillor on the Astronomical Society of South Australia board, and it was his suggestion that this be done here. And I mean, if we want to, we could, you know, if people think it's worthwhile, is even just sending them an email from council and thanking for this initiative, because it brought a lot of attention to the area and the Dark Sky Reserve, and a lot of good educational messages coming out of it. It's all in line with the branding stuff. So I think he would appreciate it, and he's a good bloke, and I'd like to see him given some credit for the fact that it was his idea.
Well, ideally, probably an email from, in my view, would be from our CEO would be probably appropriate. If Ben thinks that's appropriate, we can certainly do a draft for Ben. It's up to Ben, of course. Just a note of thanks for that. You with us there still, Ben? Yeah, well, you might not. I'll move the Ben. That's right. All right. Well, let's not lose that thought. I don't think we need to minute it, but we'll.
Yeah, it's fine. It will get done. Yeah, it doesn't need to be minuted or anything like that. Mel will take a note of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. No, it's good pick up. Thank you, Long. That's good pick up. All right, let's move on, folks. We have the branding strategy.
We just need someone to move that.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a mover and a second for those reports, please? Thank you, Bill. Second, Don? Yeah. Okay, all in favour, I think that's appropriate. All right, thank you. And yeah, thanks again to our brilliant staff for bringing all that information to us. It's greatly appreciated. All right, so 8.2, we've had our presentation from Caitlin and Greg. Now we have chief recommendation. So two-part recommendation report we received, and that the strategy as presented to the committee be recommended to council for adoption, and that the IP assignment agreement be executed with the intent that council seek a trademark for the branding strategy. Now, there was some discussion about the strategy, and So are we happy to move it as is, or do we want to alter this recommendation slightly, or?
Well, my view is, I don't know what formality we want to do. I think it's great work. We'll make that really clear. But I suggest that the logo be looked at to be massaged.
And I would suggest that it's very simple change to what appears to be an L, turn it into an R by a little bit of separation.
Yep.
Is all that needs. It's very, very minor.
Okay. Well, if that's the point, can we make a 3-point recommendation? I know we can't really, then we're going to receive it.
Except it's subject to
If
a
so,
review of the logo.
Can we move that it's accepted as is, see what the, and then, and subsequently, options can be looked at, but that's also, that's also, I suppose, we've got two people's opinion that the logo needs to be changed, which is again, a graphic design element. So I'm not a graphic designer, but I mean, we can certainly feed that back to design. But I would have thought we moved as is rather than start playing around with tweaks.
I think the whole purpose of putting a recommendation from this committee, and I'm not a voting member, so I'm putting my tourism knowledge forward. The similarity between Loxton Waikerie logo is a bit too close for me. That's just my opinion. It doesn't have to be the determination of the voting members, but I would like to see if it's the R and M is the significant part of the logo that we actually can recognise the R. That's my point. And it's a simple tweak. Yes, it's a bit of graphic. But for this committee to recommend to adopt it as is telling council that we're happy with everything to do with it, and we're leaving it to another body to pick up. So we're identifying a potential issue. If we don't do anything about it at this level, then we're recommending to the next level to also adopt it without change.
Well, Chairman, the next meeting's not that far away in May. I wonder whether it's a good way of resolving this. Caitlin heard the discussion and could we convey back to her, can she do something with that to pick up on these concerns and then get it back to us so we can?
I suppose in fairness to Greg's point, if the majority of the meetings think it's all okay, then that becomes superfluous. But, Andrew, I don't know the correct way to go about this, really.
Yeah. I know it's a tricky one because ultimately these things come down to personal choice. We can put it to a vote to our voting members to see who gets over the line, or whether we want to receive the report today, suggest this goes to the May meeting for final endorsement, but the interim was saying is just to do a bit of massaging on that design, on that logo for someone. Any other views from members around the table or the bigger table? Now's your chance to make your.
Look, I'll say I don't think the logo is that bad, but obviously it could be perfected. I often think when people are doing graphic designs, they give you multiple options to display feelings and which way you'd want to go from there. So it probably would be nice to be able to think an alternate provided, just to give some different ideas so we could then have something to play with as opposed to just one example to go with. Sorry, that's my poodle bark in the background. He's annoying. Yeah, so I just think, I don't know, I feel like you could have it massage a little bit, or we could look at other options, but I mean, we don't want to waste a lot of time around all that, but I mean, we want the committee to be obviously happy of whatever we choose. And I think often it's good to get, as a designer myself, I always give, when I do designs as a landscape designer, 2 or 3 options where you can modify them or choose parts or elements you like. I think most graphic designers are pretty comfortable with you coming back with a bit of back and forth around a logo, considering we are going to be leaving that for a long time after we've selected it. So I do think it is important that we choose something that at the start, at least we get everyone in agreement on, but I don't think we should waste a whole heap of time and energy on it if we mainly feel like we're happy with it, but we just want what are some of the complaints we have around it? Maybe just have a discussion around the logo and where we'd like it to be massaged or what we would like to see with it more.
Thanks, councillor Victoria. Councillor Ross, you had you had up before?
Yeah, I just thought it was a good logo, and I mean, it. Everyone may not agree with it, but the wider people that would visit the reserve wouldn't really know about Loxton Wakery, or they'd just see it for itself, and it's a good logo.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm more confused than ever. That's good.
I think that, like, at a higher level, I think that, look, yeah, this work, to be honest, if you were going commercially, it's probably $30,000 worth of work in terms of the work that's been done.
Yeah.
However, you know, I think to kind of keep pace, if we move like approval, but as with anything, you can always look at variations. So there's no reason why we can't all do that, look at variations around some tweaks later. So that's fine. And we can bring that back and see if that works.
I suppose as long, you're right, Greg.
Sorry, I was just finishing.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, then you've got the original version. So it's probably an exercise where we can tweak some angles and maybe make it, if I'm understanding correctly, just kind of more clearly define the R and the M, and just be careful we don't lose the organic flow. That's kind of important to take away and come up with a variation or two without losing the intent. And then that'll be I suppose, that can come to the next meeting, and we can I suppose look at them side by side.
Okay, I think I've got it. I'm a move that we accept without precluding, that accepting does not preclude further tweaking and change based on feedback.
No, I think that generally, visual design they're always subjective.
Oh, no doubt.
Subjective measures, but I think it's an ongoing process in terms of, brand development. And so, there's obviously, from that, there's things that doesn't mean the website in there is the website. There's going to be a lot of work done around that as well. So I think it's, it's fair to take the feedback, and we can easily kind of come up with some variations and then we'll go from there.
Oh, so
Andrew, can I, through the chair, make a suggestion then? Similar to what Bill's said, acceptance in principle, subject to the feedback from the committee on the logo being considered.
Yeah.
Simplifies it.
Through the chair, just to clarify the recommendation is that council adopt it and seek a trademark for the branding strategy. So it's important, if that is the recommendation, that the brand is what we want council to seek a trademark.
That's true. Costly exercise, that trademarking.
You were to be able to trademark until that's all.
Exactly.
So we're still hanging a cliff here. So Mel, where are you at? Not putting it all back onto you, but we've got 45 opinions now. I'm just not going to stand into a.
We need to get it.
Need to get it for the minutes, so.
Yes, I think so. What it is it's the visual identity is accepted, and I think as Ben's just articulated, subject to some logo variations also being considered. Is that right? That's clear. Okay.
And you wouldn't trademark until that's final.
Yeah, so in actual fact, the rest of the recommendation
isn't relevant at the moment.
Is not relevant for the moment.
Yep.
So are we recommending to council that we're accepting the visual identity?
We received the report. And received the report. We're going to receive
And that is an acceptance of the branding strategy in principle.
So that the branding strategy be accepted,
In principle,
yes.
subject to further consideration of logo variation based on committee feedback. And then I'll be able to report back to this meeting.
Yeah.
So do you want to dot point 3 then, Gary, that will then finalise the matter at the May meeting?
I don't think we need to do that. Just bring another report back in the May meeting with a recommendation to endorse again and get council to adopt.
All right.
To short circuit that process, maybe the brand option can be circulated outside of the meeting so that we can come in with an informed view.
Yeah,
that's a
good idea.
So we don't want to delay.
Assuming Caitlin's got capacity to.
Well, that's
the other question.
That's another question, but I mean, that's something I'm working with her that's another issue, but I'll have to work out, I can work that out. I think it's also worth noting that Caitlin has assigned the IP to us. So that's,
But still needs the formal resolution.
needs a resolution, but she's happy.
Yes,
Probably
she's
what
yes,
she's
yes,
happy.
she's happy, yes.
So, which is important,
I think,
in terms of that trademark.
Mel, can you please read back the second part of the recommendation?
Yes, the branding strategy be accepted in principle, subject to further consideration of logo variation based on committee feedback.
Okay, and then all the rest that's is.
No,
No, the rest comes
that's
out, that's it.
That's it.
So it doesn't go to.
All right,
council.
okay, beautiful. All right, no,
that doesn't go to council yet at all.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, sorry, I'm always the slowest guy in the house. All right, is everyone clear on that resolution? All right, I'll kind of move in a second, please.
I'll move it.
Bill, thank you very much. Is there a second anywhere?
Well,
Tom, thank you very
we're
much.
the only ones who do these things.
Yeah, I need our 15 minutes of fame here.
That's all
I
right.
don't think I can second mine.
We all had a bit to do with it, didn't we?
No further comments. I'll put that to a vote. All in favour? Happy with that?
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's move on. Hours getting late. Well, there's one.
I can ask a question immediately on this, Chairman, is how does this next item on the 21.9, that all sit there, if the words are changed, you know, to River Murray or Murray River and dropping out the international and reserve, does that make any difference to any of this?
No, it doesn't, because this is no, it doesn't, because this is the current logo, the current trademark.
And we're still intending to use it in
Yes,
some way or other?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, right.
I think it
That's all
actually reinforces
She did put it
trying
up
to
there,
do,
yeah.
which is actually that to use it, you've got to have some
Authority.
authority to use it. Otherwise, if we have people just using it,
Yeah,
it'll
I
be
know.
ripped off.
No, I'm
And-
not
Yeah.
haggling about that.
No, I'm just saying, it's kind of flows in nicely. It's good, I think it's good.
If we went to our wiggly worm, then that's all I was asking.
Okay, 8.3, use of dark side trademark policy. Gary, you want to speak to this at all?
Yeah, look, I just want to reinforce the reason why I have done this policy is because the trademark has been, obviously it's been registered. And as council is the owner of the trademark, it seemed appropriate that we have a policy in place for the use of the trademark. So if an organisation, like a tour operator or something, wishes to utilise the 21.9 or the logo, because they are trademarked, they do actually need permission from us as the owner of that trademark. So this policy just gives us better guidance around how we manage the use of the logo by third party.
It's actually wider than the use of the logo. It's the colours, it's the whole brand. And I know the logo is the obvious thing, but I'd suggest that there be some sort of simple document that outlines, here's the criteria, and if you're gonna use the logo or whatever, or use the colours, we should be encouraging people, but you still want to monitor it and have some control over it, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what the hairstyle guide as part of the
Yeah.
policy does.
Yeah,
All right, there is a three-part recommendation there. If there's, unless there's further comments around the table to this report before we move on. Okay, if not, I'll put this, so can I seek a mover and a seconder, please, for those three-part recommendation on page 15.
Yep.
Yep, I think
I'm
I'm
happy to move.
I'll support you, John.
yeah.
good on you, Greg. All right, that's good. And I'll put that to a vote. All in favour, happy with that? Yep, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, folks. All right, thanks, Gary and Ben, for the report. We'll move on. Very much. So, blah, this is towards the end of things, looks like. All right, we are. All right. 0.9, questions without notice. Do you have any questions without notice, meeting member? Very good. We have no confidential reports. All right then. Again, thank you for your attendance today, and for those who can hang around, I think Bill's going to do a quick presentation on the
Yeah, just-
Caravan Park.
Quick talk, yeah.
But we'll close the meeting. Let those who need to get away, get away. Our next meeting is Tuesday, 27th of May. Yes, in Canberra. All right, thank you very much. Thanks everyone, and we'll close the meeting. Thanks.